Hello to my friends at the UE, the great rank and file organizing union, the union that is in the hands of the members. I want to really thank Carl and all of your leadership for inviting me to speak with you. I only wish that we were in person. This is a 100-year crisis that we have been leading through. This is a 100-year crisis of really tough times that we have been leading through. And your union is right to recognize that, but also to recognize that it's always tough times for labor. We wouldn't have any labor rights if people didn't fight and actually give up their lives to fight for the rights that we have today. And today it's our turn to struggle and push forward. Today it's our turn to set the agenda for people across this country, and we can do that together. My name is Sara Nelson. I'm the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants, representing 50,000 flight attendants at 17 different airlines. I want you to know some of them flying over you right now, raining down solidarity on this convention. And I just completed 25 years as a union flight attendant. I'm still a union flight attendant. And during that time, 20 years ago, I learned what will happen in the event of a crisis. Mother Jones, the great labor organizer, told us that the capitalists say there is no need of labor organizing, except that they themselves are always organizing, shows their real beliefs. I learned that up close and personal after September 11th, when I lost my friends. And United Airlines put a manager on a plane the very next day to tell us that we had to get back on the planes as we were grieving the loss of our friends and trying to make sense of what had just happened and how our lives were completely turned upside down, and that we had half of us going onto a furlough list. We had United Airlines coming back and saying, the company is hemorrhaging money. We all got to pull together and fight for the company. And it was the more than 3 years of bankruptcy that followed that, where I learned that there are some who will take a crisis and take everything that they can. And if you end up in a situation where the corporate elite have all the control, like in a bankruptcy court, where you negotiate with a gun to your head, they can try to take everything. And if it was not for our union fighting every single day, fighting against the greed that would say that management were key employees in the business, and they deserved bonuses to stay while they were cutting our pay, slashing our health care, cutting retiree health care, and going after our pensions. We fought them every single day. And because we fought them, we saved retiree health care, and we made them pay double what they wanted to pay in a pension replacement plan. But in the bankruptcy court, while we were fighting for that pension, when $80 million would have saved that pension, the court approved termination of our pensions, and with the next gavel that the judge put down, awarded $400 million to the top executives. So I've seen crisis, and I've seen what a capitalist society unchecked will do to workers. And if we don't set the agenda from the start, they will take everything that they can every single time. As we've seen over the last 20 years, I've been on a lot of picket lines. And it doesn't matter if you're a public sector worker or a private sector worker or federal sector. They're going after the same things. They want to make us work harder for less. And you've all seen the charts where productivity of the American worker has gone through the roof while wages have remained essentially flat. There has been incredible growing inequality as workers have had fewer voices in unions, as workers have had less of an ability to set the agenda in the country. And so with 80% organized in the airline industry, we decided not this time, we decided to use all that hurt and loss, the personal bankruptcies, the difficult decisions not to send kids to the schools they want to go to, or the camps that they want to learn from, or to lose their homes altogether. All of those difficult decisions that people personally had to make because they took everything from us and pushed it into the pockets of the bankruptcy attorneys, the hedge funds, the bondholders, and on our backs. We learned so much from that we decided this time we're going to craft a package where workers will win. And we put forward demands to the airline industry first, because we knew that if we put the pressure on our companies to come to the table with us, Then we would push labor and capital to put pressure on the politicians to do the right thing. Start in the workplace and the politics will follow. It doesn't matter the party. It matters whether or not workers are joined together and are setting the agenda, defining the problem, setting our demands, adding urgency to our actions, understanding that struggle makes us stronger, and then getting results. Why do people have so much favorability of unions today? Because they have been squeezed. They have been squeezed every which way. And on all those picket lines that I've been on, doesn't matter if it was the auto workers or the mine workers or flight attendants, it's the same issues. The corporate elite want to define certain jobs as a business model. And that means that you're defined by whatever they say it is. If you're a contract worker doing the same work next to someone on the same assembly line, because you're a contract worker, you have no rights, you have no say in your job, no flexibility on the job, and you make less without any benefits. That's wrong. And that's what we've allowed them to do because we haven't set the agenda. As the climate crisis comes towards us, we have to take this to heart and we have to be setting the agenda. So what did we do this time? In the airline industry, we said it was going to be a workers first package. If the airlines were going to get any money, it was going to have to go to the workers first, to our pay, our benefits, keeping us in our jobs, no cuts to our hourly rates, because we said no concessions this time, nothing on our backs. But I'll tell you, over the last 20 years, as they have eked out more productivity from us and people have worked 2 and 3 jobs just to survive, or overtime hours to make ends meet, the gains that we made almost 100 years ago for the 8-hour day, the 40-hour work week, unions that brought you the weekends, they'll take it all back, and they have. And so we have to understand that if we don't continue the fight, if we don't keep up the fight every single time, we're going to move backward. But as we set these demands in our workplace, as we make sure that working people all across this country understand that the labor movement is for them, it is not a set of international officers who are elected by a small portion of the union itself. It is the real rank and file people who are members in that union. As we say in our union is not an institution. It's the hearts and souls of the professionals who are our flying partners, who are our co-workers. And we're not a rubber stamp of the same people either. The boss decides who comes to our property. We're the only place where it's not self-selecting group of people who come together because they have the same views. In fact, we have very different views, but that's what makes us stronger, because we can challenge each other, because we can think about things in a new way. And when we come together on our demands and understand that we have so much more in common than anything that could ever divide us, that's real power. Because when we take on the boss, we do it with a 90% or greater strike vote. We do it with all of us in, nobody out. And setting those demands, making clear what we're willing to do to back them up, and adding urgency to the actions that we're taking and getting results, that's why people want to join unions. They saw that on the picket line, on those strikes that happened in 2018 and 2019, that started in Chicago, frankly, with the UE, and followed with the core group of educators in CTU. He showed us again what it means to struggle, what it means to make demands, what it means to hold those in control to account. And I want to be very clear. As Mother Jones said, if you would only understand that you hold the solution to the whole problem in your hands, for if every industry were to hold up and simply stop working, the corporate elite would yield to any and all demands because the world could simply not go on. She's describing a general strike, but what that really means is that we have the power. They have money and control, but we have the power. Now, it does matter what is happening on Capitol Hill. It matters that in state houses all over the country, they're trying to strip us of the right to vote. They're trying to strip us of our democracy. We have to set certain standards and we have to have certain demands. And the PRO Act has demands that shows that the playing field is not level. It shows working people what we're up against and what we're struggling against and why it is that labor unions have had less and less power. We have to make that very clear to people. But we can't say that if we don't get these changes, we can't organize. Of course we can organize. Our unions were formed by the United Mine Workers of America with a bunch of immigrants who didn't even speak the same language. But when the mine blew and people lost their fathers and their husbands, when they're comforting their children and each other in different languages, they're speaking the same language of the heart. And it's that heart of workers that made it possible for us to break through even the worst violence, even the worst atrocities against working people, and form our unions and fight back and win. Because we fundamentally have the power together to do that. So what we did was we got that Workers First package in this COVID relief. And we saved our jobs. And on top of it, we also set a structure that made sure that it would stay focused on the workers. We also demanded that while all the money would go to the workers, that executive pay was capped and stock buybacks were banned. Because we also know that when the airlines were making tons of money and it was time for us to go back into bargaining, they were still seeking concessions because Wall Street was demanding them, because they wanted to take more and more and more. It's never enough. So we can fight back with these demands, and I want to give you some good news. There has been an agreement, even with Senator Manchin, among all the Democrats in the Senate, for a deal on a voting rights bill. And this is really important. It includes automatic voter registration, online registration, election day as a holiday, 15 days of early voting, same-day voter registration, ensures vote by mail and standards on drop boxes, prevents voter list purging. There are standards for voter ID so that they can't just tell people that they don't have the right identification to be able to vote. There's rights for people who were formerly incarcerated to vote, and it tackles gerrymandering. So this is an agreement that all of the Democrats agree on. There's going to be a vote this week or next week in the Senate, and that will set up a move on the filibuster to make sure that our democracy is preserved. It's really important that we put forward these demands. It's important that we are strategic about it, and it's important that we get wins. On workers' rights, we also have some movement in the reconciliation bill. And so what we have is real financial penalties for employers who retaliate against workers organizing a union in real time. A ban on mandatory anti-union captive audience meetings. A personal liability for executives, this one I love, who knowingly break the laws. And a ban on permanently replacing or discriminating against workers who go on strike. These are not all the demands in the PRO Act, but these are going to be gains for us that we can then get a foothold on and push forward still. There's always going to be a struggle. There's never going to be labor management peace. There may be times when they want to work with us because sometimes you have to beat it out of them. Sometimes they have to just remember the beating they're going to take if they don't deal with us fairly. But it's always got to be in the grounding that the workers have the power, that the workers own the union, and that the workers can set the agenda. Let's raise our standards, lift our heads, and organize forward. I'm so grateful to have all of you as friends, comrades, union siblings, and I look forward to what we're going to accomplish together. Thank you, UE. Have a great convention, and let's go define the problems, set our demands, back up our demands with what we're willing to do, and add urgency in our actions every single day for working people. Solidarity forever.